You ever wonder how God feels about wicked leaders in the church? You ever wonder why it seems that they just keep getting away with doing terrible things and manipulating people and deceiving people, and it seems like God doesn't see? Well, we're going to look at some of this in the scriptures tonight that truly he does see, and they eventually will get theirs. And we're going to look at and see how in the book of Micah, the Lord talks about this. So I'm glad you're here, and let's just dive into the word. We're in Micah 3. Starting in verse 1, "Hear now, O heads of Jacob, and you rulers of the house of Israel. Is it not for you to know justice? You who hate good and love evil, who strip the skin from my people and the flesh from their bones, who also eat the flesh of my people, flay the skin from them, break their bones, and chop them into pieces like meat for the pot, like flesh in the cauldron. Then they will cry to the Lord, but he will not hear them. He will even hide his face from them at that time, because they have been evil in their deeds." So here we have an indictment against the leaders of Jacob and the leaders of Israel and how they're treating the people. And so how do we apply this to our today? First of all, we must know the context. So this is a prophecy against both the southern and the northern kingdoms, and they were not living how they should. The leaders are supposed to be the examples for the people. They're supposed to be either, whether it be the priest, whether it be the king, they should be getting counsel from a prophet or the priest, hearing a word from the Lord, and they should be being an example for the people of how they should be living, and they should be holding the people accountable to hold true to God's commands. But instead, they were taking advantage. They were feeding on the flock, so to speak. They were being wolves in the henhouse or a fox in the henhouse. They were taking advantage of the people, and the people are vulnerable because so often through history, most people were illiterate, and so they relied on the person that had the knowledge or had the ability to read or actually got the word from God, or whatever the channel of information was coming through, it was up to them to hold to their integrity. And if they weren't holding to their integrity because they felt that they were in a place of power, and so they were going to abuse that place of power and take advantage of the vulnerable people that were under them, that were looking to them to give them guidance, God is very, very upset about that. And today, we have a multitude of prosperity preachers out there that will tell you that God will bless you if you give money to their ministry. And these people are living lavish lives on the backs of these people that are hoping that what this man or woman of God has said to them will come true. And so they're placing their hope in a man or woman, and they're gullibly giving all their money to these people, either for healing or for prosperity or for whatever they're promising these people. They're taking advantage of them, and that's not right. A servant, the greatest in heaven, what's Christ say, will be the one that serves the others. And so if you think just because of your position you're going to abuse it and continue, verse 4 is very clear. Then they will cry to the Lord, but he will not hear them. He will hide his face from them at that time because they have done evil in his sight. So because of their wicked ways, when their time of trouble or their time of need came and they actually cried out in disparity to the Almighty, he was going to turn his face away. Because you've lived wickedly this whole time. You've taken advantage of the flock you were put over. It was your responsibility to do this. That was placed upon you to do the right thing, and you didn't. And so now when trouble comes to your door and you cry out to God, he turns away from you. I can't think of a more terrifying thing to have happen to you than to have the love and caring God, who is all these different characteristics, wrathful, justice, peace, love, caring. He literally turns away from you and lets you fall by the fate that has befalled you, because of the way you lived your life. There will be a time where these wicked pastors and false prophets and teachers will get theirs, whether if it's on this side of eternity or the next. But God is making a list. He is taking impeccable records of everything we've ever done and said. So nobody is ever going to get away with anything when it comes to God's records. So all of these teachers and preachers that are preying on the flock, that are doing these wicked things, and living essentially a very, very prosperous and wealthy life now, it will all come crashing down around them eventually. Because everybody has a time of need, right? Some of these prosperity preachers will get old, or they will be in an accident or something, and they have been acting wickedly. They're not of God. They're of the devil. And the devil is a sheep and a lion, and he's someone that's prowling around to take advantage. And that's what these pastors are doing. That's what these teachers are doing. They're taking advantage. It will not go well for them in the end. So let's go on to the next section here. Thus says the Lord concerning the prophets, who make my people stray, who chant peace while they chew with their teeth, but who prepare war against him, who puts nothing in their mouths. Therefore, you shall have night without visions, you shall have darkness without divination. The sun shall go down on the prophets, and the day shall be dark for them. So the seers shall be ashamed, the diviners abashed. Instead, they shall cover their lips, for there is no answer from God. But truly I am full of power by the Spirit of the Lord, and of justice and might, to declare to Jacob his transgressions, and to Israel his sin. So, we've had the leadership, right? We've had the leaders. Hear, O Israel, and O house of Jacob, both of the parts of the nation. We have the actual leaders of the nation. Now he's addressing the prophets. He's addressing God's supposed to be God's spokesman. And he's saying, you're playing favoritism. When people feed you and pay you, you give them what they want to hear, right? You're like a gumball machine. If you put a quarter in and you turn the handle, you get a prize. But if you come and you don't bring me anything, you don't bring me a gift, you don't better my life. No, I'm gonna give you a bad omen, or I'm gonna give you a bad word from the Lord. And so it's this fortune teller feel now, because if you pay for enough, you get what you want. And that's not how a true prophet works. Regardless of the message, and regardless if he gets taken care of or not, he proclaims the truth, not favoritism, not only if you're being cared for. And that's what's happening here. And maybe we can look around us today of our attitude. Are we across the board holding to our integrity? Regardless of what happens, regardless if people receive us or care for us, or will you continue to hold to the truth if you're spit on or persecuted, or your name is dragged through the mud? Are you going to continue to preach God's word accurately and not adjust it for the masses to win their approval? We should never want the approval of man. We should want the approval of God. And so when we want the approval of God, we hold to what he says. And that's not what they were doing here. And I warn any pastor or any teacher out there, if you are adjusting the message to tickle the ears of the people you're over, you're doing them an injustice. And you are not doing your job. And I would ask you to really consider your ways, because they need to know the hard truths. If you always give them the sweet sugar, nice things, they're never going to be convicted. They're just going to think that the way they're living already is good enough. It's good enough. The pastor says, man, you're doing this, you're doing great. Don't worry about a thing. Don't worry about a thing? Come on now. Look around you. There are many, many things that we need to address day in and day out. And we have to stay vigilant. And that comes with self-accountability. And that comes with transparency. You have to be about all these things to truly want change in your life. So find a church that has a Bible preaching pastor so that growth can actually happen, because you're not just given the love messages, but you're given the hell messages, the wrath messages, the discipline messages, the submission to authority messages. All of these are things we need to hear regularly, because we so easily forget what we need to be doing. So let's go to the last half of this chapter in Micah, which is a seething rebuke of the rulers and the prophets again. Now hear this, you heads of the house of Jacob and rulers of the house of Israel, who adore justice, abhor justice, and pervert all equity, who build up Zion with bloodshed and Jerusalem with iniquity. Here heads judge for a bribe. Her heads judge for a bribe. Her priests teach for pay, and her prophets divine for money. Yet they lean on the Lord and say, is not the Lord among us? No harm can come upon us. Therefore, because of you, Zion shall be plowed like a field. Jerusalem shall become a heap of ruins, and the mountain of the temple like the barren hills of the forest. Again, he's circling back to the rulers and the prophets. He's putting them all together now. And what is the center of the corruption, right? Is it obvious to you? It's money. It's money. And this speaks so directly to what we have today. When a church becomes about the numbers and the money, it becomes corrupted. It cannot hold to the truth if it starts caring about money and numbers. And this is exactly what happens. It doesn't happen so out in front like it may have happened back then, but now it's all behind closed doors, in elders meetings and in staff meetings. And all of this stuff is talked about. Oh man, how do we get more of this? And how's the budget now? Oh, we need to talk about this because we needed this and this and this. And it's all a business, and it becomes a structural bit about money. And people will do just about anything for money because it's the currency on which we make our living. We're able to buy food and do all this other things. But when a church and a pastor and prophets and teachers become more about what they can get out of people and instead about what they can speak into people, we're starting to lose our way. Be discerning and don't fall prey to so many of these webs out there that say Christian, but they're not. They're just Christian in word alone. They're false temples. They're false teachers. Read the word and know what a true pastor looks like. Guys, I love you, and may the Lord be with all of you.